Sleep is a built-in natural way to become more creative. Figuring out how to solve problems, how to do things differently, more efficiently, taking a completely different perspective, trying something new is essential for human flourishing. And I could show you a bunch more data from experiments, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to tell you that we've known this anecdotally for over 100 years. Maybe in your life, you've experienced this. Have you ever slept on it to get to an insight? Have you ever awakened after a good sleep and had a new perspective on something? Solved a problem, made a decision that you were having a lot of trouble making before you slept. This idea of sleeping on it is really more than just the old adage. So this is an example from the annals of scientific history showing that sleep really does promote this kind of creative insight. So this is Frederick August Kekule. He was very famous in his time, and he's famous for solving the molecular structure of benzene. Now, you don't need to know a lot about benzene. It's just a molecule. It's very important for life. But what he was trying to do was figure out its physical anatomical structure. And when you look at the work on creativity and innovation and insight, you often will see people getting stuck, or they hit an impasse before they actually come up with a solution, especially a creative solution to a problem. And that's what happened to him. So I'm not saying sleep and everything's going to happen via osmosis, not at all. So you've got to do the hard work, you've got to do the homework, put in the time and the effort. And he's done that, right? But he's stuck. So he's just at an impasse. And so instead of continuing to work, he decides to take a nap. And in his case, he has a visionary dream. Now, you don't always have to have the dream to get to a creative insight, or at least we don't think so. You certainly don't have to remember it. Just getting into sleep, particularly REM sleep, seems to be enough. And in his case, he nods off. He starts to dream about these atoms that are gambling before his eyes. And all of a sudden, they kind of line up and make a circular shape. And that image turns into an Ouroboros, or a snake biting its tail. And wham! When he has that idea, he wakes up and realizes that the structure of benzene is hexagonal, right? It's roughly circular like the snake. And that gave him the aha, and then he rushed to the lab and worked out the consequences of his hypothesis. He's not alone. Otto Loewi, who discovered chemical transmission and won a Nobel Prize, almost the same thing. So to me, this means that we should, again, be taking care of our sleep, and maybe we should be leveraging it for creativity. These are just examples from the sciences, which are actually rarer compared to the arts. So people sleeping on it to write creative song lyrics, come up with ideas for novels. Salvador Dali, if you don't know who he is, look him up. Crazy, interesting, definitely wild and creative painter who used to do this on purpose. He would fall asleep with a spoon, like a pretty heavy metal spoon in his hand, and he would lean back, knowing that when you go into rapid eye movement sleep, your entire body is paralyzed, right? All of your major muscle groups are paralyzed except for your eyes, for the most part, so they can generate the rapid eye movements. But the rest of you is paralyzed so that you don't act out your dreams. This is actually an incredibly important adaptive mechanism. There is a disorder called rapid eye movement behavior disorder where that goes wrong, but that's actually quite rare. But he's leveraging rapid eye movement sleep by falling asleep with the spoon in his hand, knowing that as soon as he goes into rapid eye movement sleep, his muscles will relax, he'll drop the spoon, it will clatter to the floor, and the sound of the metal hitting the floor will wake him up. And then he would intentionally paint what he was dreaming about. And that's him trying to target rapid eye movement sleep specifically. So it's a little wild, but I think there's a lot of room for us to try to leverage the creative brain and all the things that it can do that are so unique compared to wakefulness or the other phases of sleep. Remember, when you're in rapid eye movement sleep, you have a wildly active bilateral hippocampus, wildly active bilateral amygdala. You have suppression coming from the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, but you have a switched off dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That's that executive system that keeps track of things, the rules of space and time, but it also restricts creativity. With that being turned off, but the rest of these processes going gangbusters, your brain is set up to have these creative insights in a way that it simply can't do during wakefulness. One of these days, I think we'll start leveraging that in the way some of these artists and scientists do. So the point here is that if you're not sleeping well and regularly, if you're not getting the sleep you need, if you're not maximizing each of these different types of sleep or stages of sleep, you're missing out on your ability to truly learn, encode, and consolidate well. You're missing out on your ability to regulate stress and negative emotions while still preserving what you need to learn from the negative experiences that you have in life. And you're missing out on this tremendously unique pattern of functional brain connectivity that, again, you don't see in wakefulness or in any other sleep state that allows you to be creative in a way you just can't be otherwise.